Hello once again. I'm Jon Kirkman. I'm a broadcaster and journalist based in the UK, and I'm here to maybe remind you or maybe sort of push you down a road to some of the things you may not have seen or be aware of, or maybe you are aware of and don't know where to get them from. This little item is a wonderful little box set, and it is by White Lion, and it covers the albums from 1985 through to 1991 when they were signed to Atlantic Records. There's a nice bonus album in here, of course, as well, which I will tell you about in due course. Now, I first became aware of White Lion when their first album came out, although it was an independent released album. It came out on Japanese import, and I read about it in Kerrang magazine. And when I saw it, I thought, I'm going to have that, and I was knocked out by it. What you also get in this box set, it's a nice little poster. I suppose if you ever encounter any of the guys in White Lion, I'm sure they'd sign it. I know certainly Mike Tramp, the vocalist, tours regularly, so maybe you could bump into Mike and get him to sign it for you. It would look nice in a frame, that, wouldn't it? You get that in the box. All the credits are on the back for the various albums and singles, so that's all the info is there. Now here is the debut album. Now this is chock full of great songs, and the production values on this album were really, really high. Considering it was an independent release, they set the bar very high with this album. And as I said, that was getting played a lot in Kirkman Towers around about 1986. Now, in 87, by then they'd signed to Atlantic Records, and Atlantic Records, like many other labels, wanted their own sort of cachet of rock bands, because a lot of rock music was being played on MTV at that time. If you know, in the mid-80s, rock came back very, very strongly, and I guess Atlantic wanted another rock band to add to their stable, because they had some great bands on Atlantic Records back in the day. This is their debut for Atlantic, Pride, and again, they did very, very well with this particular album. The thing about White Lion, they were great musicians. You have Mike Tramp on vocals, and Vito Bratta, who was the guitarist. And when you consider there were a lot of guitar heroes in rock in the mid-80s, I mean, Eddie Van Halen, the late great Eddie Van Halen, just to name one, but people like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani were coming through then as well. Vito was definitely up there with these guys, very, very important. James Lomenzo was on bass, and of course Greg D'Angelo on drums. It stayed that way pretty much through the whole of their time with Atlantic until they split in 1992. Now, another album. This was a really good album. It came out in 1989, and the big song on here was a cover of Golden Earrings, fabulous song, Radar Love, and they did a really, really good version of it. Just sort of made it enough of a White Lion thing to kind of forget really about the original. The original's a fantastic song, been out and reissued a lot of times, but they kind of made it their own, which is great. Sometimes bands just sort of cover songs and just do them exactly like the original, which is fine. But White Lion certainly had a foot in both camps, really. Whilst it was very much still the Golden Earring arrangements, they certainly added their own touch to it, which made it that much more special. Now, come 1991, when their final album for Atlantic was released, we were in the midst of a grunge, I suppose, tsunami. Everything that came out of Seattle virtually was considered so important, and it really was a tsunami, because it washed away so many rock bands, and rock bands who previously had a huge commercial success. And White Lion was seemingly one of these bands who was seen as to be out of step with the grunge movement, which is a great shame, because it was almost like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, to be honest with you. This is a great album. I mean, from the opening track, I just think it's one of their best. And yet, sadly, about 18 months after they released this album in 91, they were no more. So, again, it's full of great songs and great performances. Now, here's the real pull for a lot of people. This is White Lion live. Now, it contains rehearsal, sort of sound check songs, and a live gig that was recorded at the Ritz in New York in 1988. Here's all the songs that they performed either during the rehearsal or actually at the gig at the Ritz in 1988, which was kind of between Pride and, of course, Big Game. And I think that was probably the height, certainly live-wise, for White Lion, and probably commercially as well. They sound fantastic on here, and this is a very good live performance. So that's the big pull for this box set. But also, I mean, it's worth having all these albums placed together in one box. I still rate this album very, very highly, their debut, considering it was an independent release. And sometimes budget dictates the production values of independently released albums, but this has a very, very high production value content on here, and I still think it's one of their best albums, and I still play it from time to time. But they were a great band, and occasionally Mike Tramp will reform a version of White Lion. They don't really capture the success of the original lineup, but they were a great band back in the day, and Mike Tramp is still a great vocalist, still going out there performing White Lion songs as well. He's a great musician and vocalist, and I think that maybe one day it would be nice to see the original foursome back together and do some gigs, because they were a great band both in the studio and live. But this is available now, covers all the albums that were released between 1985 and 1991, and you get a bonus live album recorded in 1988. You can get it from Cherry Red Records. The address is running along the bottom of this page now as we're talking to you. Or of course you can get it from any one of your many online distributors, because I'm sure there's going to be lots of people carrying this particular release. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoy it if you get it. It really is worthwhile, and thanks for watching.